Welcome back and thank you for staying with AgriTalk today. Today we are talking about hunger and how we can eliminate hunger in the world. And with me is Leila Libertrail, who is a project lead from Root to Food. Leila, before we went on a break, you mentioned about the same food need to be safe. And someone told me if food is not safe, it is not food. So when we talk about chemicals, because that's been an issue that has been coming up, agrochemicals that most African countries, even here in Kenya, that we still use, are said not to be safe. So what do we need to do to ensure that even farmers understand that they need to ensure that whatever they use to grow their crop is safe at the end of will make sure that the crop is safe at the end of the season?
Well, there are many approaches to a safer food production system. So if you look at an integrated pest management approach, you would start with good agricultural practices, which are ways around repelling pests that don't rely on synthetic pesticides. And then at the very last stage, there are sort of 4 steps to an integrated pest management approach. But the last one would be to make sure that the least toxic pesticides or agrochemicals are available for the farmer to use. And it's very important that agrovet dealers and sellers are communicating some of the risks associated with plant protection products, with pesticides at the point of sale. It's also very important that at county level there are extension services which are supporting farmers, with the knowledge to understand how they could grow and produce food without harmful pesticides, and then if they were at the most extreme sort of case, if they were to use pesticides, how they need to protect themselves. So personal protection equipment, proper knapsack sprayers, pre-harvest intervals is very important. I've also heard that every farmer in Kenya has two farms, one for food for the house, and the other is food for the market.
True.
And the food for the market, we can spray all manner of chemicals on these crops and then sell it to the broker the next day, never mind pre-harvest intervals and all of these things, to get the income in and carry on. And there's a big gap between, because of the current sort of food system that we have, I mean, not just here, but around the world, there's a big gap between the person who's growing your food and the person who's buying that food. And so from the farmer's perspective, if I'm going to spray pesticides on my tomatoes here today, it's going to the market. I don't know who's buying it in the market or when. It's not my problem. And so we really need this sort of extension knowledge support for farmers, and we ultimately need this backing at national and at county government level for these alternative food systems, agroecological approaches.
Okay. Also, when it comes to these chemicals that are banned, especially in Europe, most of them are still being used here in Kenya.
Yes.
But if you look at it critically, most of those chemicals still come from Europe. What does that mean about the world system, whereby you ban a chemical in your country, but you still produce it for another country?
Yeah, so this is what we call is the double standard. And there have been many civil society organizations as well as right to food rapporteurs sort of condemning this practice where we have got chemicals that are produced by companies in Europe or and the fact that they're banned in their own country of origin, but allowed to be sold in other countries. So there is a lot of activism here, Philip. There's a lot of, I think, there's a great sense of injustice at how this is possible, and what it really places the responsibility on each country's governments as sovereign states to be able to have stricter, I think, registration processes, and to be able to look at the data, and for that data to be adapted to the local context. You know, one of the biggest things is a maximum residue limit in Europe for whichever active pesticide on maize. It's one thing in Europe. Maybe it should be different in Kenya, because Kenyans are eating maize 3 times a day. You know, Europeans aren't eating maize 3 times a day. The same things, we have different bee species. You know, so tests that are done on how concerning an active ingredient might be for some pollinator in Europe would be different to each country's context.
Okay. Also, some players in the agricultural sector, especially the horticultural sector, have claimed that we cannot ban some of these chemicals because of the climatic condition. We live in the tropics, so we have a wide range of pests and diseases that are not available in Europe. Or during winter, winter helps break the cycle for these pests and diseases. But here in Africa, it is not possible to eliminate. Is that argument really holding any water?
I don't feel so. I'm sure you could have a conversation with many people who would say that it does. These chemicals were not banned in Europe or in America or elsewhere because they were not wanted by farmers or because they were not used. They were banned because they have significant human health and or environmental effects.
Okay.
And for that reason alone, that is reason enough, I believe, to look at how they're controlled in their registration status in Kenya or in other African countries. You know, we have to operate in a way that says that, well, if we can't grow that food, should we be growing that food, yet it's causing, you know, cancer or reproductive toxicity or destroying our soil organisms or poisoning fish or polluting the water? Does it make it okay to use that pesticide just to grow the food if these are all the external, you know, these externalities, these other costs that are coming out of that production system or that food system? I mean, I don't know, let's have a conversation. I mean, what do you think about this? It's always interesting to debate.
When it comes to chemicals, we can have this conversation the whole day. So
yeah,
it's something that we really need to spend a day, sit down, really be true to ourselves and go for what is actually good for us and not for economic purposes,
yeah,
for profit. So
and I think, there's a lot to add there. There's, you know, true to ourselves. It's not necessarily a personal opinion or really a subjective discussion. You know, there is data and evidence to support the toxicity effects of these active ingredients on humans and on the environment. And many studies done, many studies done by local Kenyan researchers on residues found in food, produce, and in the environment. And we need to be looking at those and really, you know, it is upon the government and the Pest Control Board to really be considering data that is submitted and how strict our controls are for registering certain pesticides.
Let's now move to another elephant in the room, that is global warming and climate change. Most of the time when crops fail or the rains don't come or something happens, these days we go and blame the global warming and climate change, that it has affected the way our farmers used to produce food. Do you agree that climate change and global warming is a big issue when it comes to farming and food production?
I mean, absolutely. It's affecting how we produce food around the world. And it's, as you say, you're not speaking about it as though it's some event in the future. It's with us. And I think for that reason, if we look at this current national emergency, it should not come firstly as a surprise. I think we need to start treating this issue of drought as with us. And so what are we therefore expecting budget funds to go towards? We've spoken a bit about investing more in actually making the investments on the promises that have been made for, post-harvest storage, but have we thought about, especially in the ASAL areas, have we thought about maybe communal boreholes, communal or like grazing areas, bit more investment into storage silos? These are things that will be able to protect, I guess, the most vulnerable during these times of crisis. One of the big things is also the livestock purchasing system or scheme of the government needs to happen not when the drought is with us, but on the warnings of the National Drought Management Authority. And it will be with us. This crisis is only forecasted to become worse if now the short rains fail come October.
Okay. Earlier in 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic was announced, and the world rallied together to get a vaccine. Why is it not possible for the same world to rally together to end hunger?
I don't know. I mean, what can we say? Like, this is absolutely why we're having this conversation today, to try and raise the profile of hunger, and why the United Nations Food System is meeting to address the fact that hunger is a major crisis in the world. And I think all that the COVID-19 pandemic response by governments has gone to show is that if truly there is political will to address a crisis, it can be done. And so we should start expecting to see this. We're going into an elections year. Let us reward candidates who are talking about how they're going to respond to, how they're going to actually meet the food security needs of their constituents. Okay. I need some water. Can I have some water?
Some water, please.
I need some water. I've actually got some. And a lot of this has been about all the things the government is not doing. It's no easy task, I don't think. What we can see playing out, especially now under this national emergency, is under the agriculture component of the budget, is allocations for this, the Hunger Safety Net program. And this is being tapped into for the worst affected counties. And this is good. But like I say, and like I have said, this is meeting a minimum core responsibility to make sure no Kenyan dies of hunger. And we need to push our expectation on this. We go back to the price of fuel. This is not respecting Kenyans' right to food. All right, increasing a fuel price, because it is taking an action that is frustrating people's ability to meet their basic food requirements every day.
Okay. As we come to an end, in all this conversation about ending hunger, the farmer is at the center of it. But do you think we do enough to protect our farmers? In this country, we always complain, or the farmers complain of exploitation by middlemen. If you look at the prices that farm gate prices, they are very low. But when I go to buy the same food in the market, the cost is extreme. What do we need, or what policies do we need to do or to put in place to protect also these farmers? Having in mind that majority of our farmers are elderly. The government keeps telling us the age of our Kenyan farmer is above 60. So how do we protect these farmers at the same time?
We need to programs and projects and financial backing to investing in small scale producers. This is much what we've spoken about. These policies need to be orientated around extension services, knowledge, decentralized irrigation, seed banks and ability to use and reuse indigenous seeds. These are ways that are going to support small-scale farmers. We need to actually invest in rural infrastructure. One of the biggest problems is farmers, and this is where brokers create such a monopoly, is for farmers to get food from the farm gate to a local market. Okay. So this is dependent on rural infrastructure. So a lot of what we're doing, at the Route to Food initiative and in our alliance is being able to talk about what some of these alternative approaches are, and also what it means within the context of a right to food framework.
Okay. Do you believe that hunger can be brought to an end in the world?
I have to believe so, because this is what I at least fight for every day.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leila, for sparing time to be with us today. For our viewers back at home, that is it from AgriTalk today. Until next time, goodbye.